we have the Vanderbilts. When Cornelius Vanderbilt was 16 years old, he turned $100 into $100 million, which is $200 billion adjusted for today's money. His mom gave him $100, and he turned into what it is, $200 billion today. It was roughly equivalent to 50% of U.S. Treasury at the time. Think about that right there. 50% of the U.S. Treasury at the time. This is how rich Vanderbilt was during his time. He created a fortune for himself through his ferry and railroad companies. He was known to be a harsh man who rarely trusted his family with his business and money. With 13 kids, he only left one of his sons with the skills to handle his money and his business. Okay, so think about that. I think he had 8 daughters. I don't think he left a penny for any one of them because he didn't think there's any benefit to leaving women or his girls any money. Very interesting guy, Vanderbilt was. Well, let's see if this philosophy worked or not. So here's his legacy. When Vanderbilt died, his son William took over his fortune and doubled it to $200 million by the time he died in 1885. However, within 50 years of Cornelius's death, the fortune was completely gone. So think about it. In 50 years, $200 billion gone. There's no money. Anderson Cooper's mom said, "We may be part of the Vanderbilt's family, but there's no trust fund here, kid. Not going to give you nothing. You got to go make your own money." So whatever money Anderson Cooper's made, he's made on his own. The third and fourth generation grew up ridiculously lavishly and spent their fortunes like crazy. The descendants were prone to family competition, building huge mansions to rival each other. And this is one of them, by the way. When you see this mansion, you think this is a hotel. This is not a hotel. This was built as a vacation home. Finished in 1895, 30,000-acre estate, 250-room French Renaissance castle, took 6 years and cost nearly $6 million to build, which in today's money, you ready? $1.6 billion by today's standards. Why does somebody need a 250-room French Renaissance castle for vacation? Well, that's what these guys did. And what happened to that money? It disappeared. Biltmore House is considered the largest privately owned home in the entire country and is still operated by the Vanderbilt descendants today. 179,000 square feet, give or take, with 35 bedrooms for family and guests, 43 bathrooms, 65 fireplaces, and 3 kitchens in this place. Okay? So what can we learn here? Don't bring family into business and teaching them the trade. They didn't do that. He didn't want to do it. He said, I'm just going to do one of my kids out of the 13, but I don't want to teach the kids how I made the money. Lack of wealth habits led to poor money management and entitlement. Wasted the wealth on crazy lavish lifestyle. Don't be like the Vanderbilts. That's pretty much the story of Vanderbilts. If there's one family you don't want to be like, it is the Vanderbilt, okay? Specifically in generational wealth. To creating wealth, be like Vanderbilts. To pass down the wealth, you do not want to be like the Vanderbilts. Here's the Rothschilds. Mayor Rothschild returned to Frankfurt in 1763. At the age of 19, joined his brothers in the trading business started by their father, okay? Mayor Rothschild returned to Frankfurt. Then Rothschild banking empire grew rapidly during the French Revolution. Before he died, he left strict instructions for his heirs on how they should handle family finances. So there's strict instructions being left behind. So he was progressive. He was prepared. He knew he wanted to get these guys to think the right way. In the early 1800s, Rothschild sent his sons to live in Naples, Vienna, Paris, and London, in addition to keeping a son in Frankfurt. The five linked branches became, in effect, the first bank to transcend borders, lending to governments to finance war operations over several centuries, provided the Rothschild family with ample opportunity to accumulate bonds and build additional wealth in a range of different industries. The family's net worth peaked at around $500 billion after the Napoleonic Wars, when they were financing both sides. So what can we learn from these guys? Traditionally, the Rothschild's fortune is invested in closely held corporations. Today, the Rothschild Corporation have continued to see success. Most family members are employed by these corporations directly or are invested in operations that generate family wealth. The remarkable success of the family has largely been due to a strong interest in corporations being entrepreneurs and the practice of smart business principles. The family motto is Concordia, Integritas, Industria, which means harmony, integrity, and industry. So the family had a certain set of values and principles that they kept teaching. Therefore, the family still has been able to keep the money. Next, this one's also an interesting one. The Ford fortune. Henry Ford's fortune peaked at around $200 billion. His wealth was almost 3% of the U.S. GDP in 1913. Started Ford Motor Company in 1903 and quickly became the largest automotive manufacturer in the world. Okay? Their legacy. Upon his death, Ford left most of his vast wealth to Ford Foundation and arranged for his family to control the company permanently. Fords collectively are worth around $2 billion. It is the fifth generation of Ford sons, grandsons, and cousins to own the company. The family owns nearly 40% of voting power in Ford Company. So now what can we learn from these guys? Upon his death, trusts were in place in order to protect most of his wealth from excess taxes and transfer of wealth. By the way, this is something that most people don't realize when it comes down to estate planning. Elvis died with nothing being passed down to his family, his kids. So did MLK. So did Abraham Lincoln. There are a lot of families that were not prepared for this, and they didn't do proper estate plannings. A lot of celebrities, a lot of athletes. Babe Ruth left nothing pretty much for his family just because they didn't take the time to think about generational wealth. They were just looking at the money and themselves in their lifetime. They didn't say, well, one day I'm going to die. I'm sure that day is going to come. I'll be ready when that day comes. And they never get prepared. Most people don't get prepared for this. So they managed to keep the business within the family, and each generation took the company and moved it forward. The transfer of wealth was swift, and the business acumen and wealth habits were left intact. Okay? So whatever they learned, he passed it down, and the kids and grandkids kept using those skill sets to grow the company to the next level. Rockefeller started out as an assistant bookkeeper making 50 cents a day. His fortune peaked at around $418 billion. Again, another 3% of U.S. GDP around the same time as Ford. Started Standard Oil in 1870 and grew to control 91% of oil production and 85% of oil sales in the United States. Okay. Upon his death, all the money went into trusts controlled by male heirs of the fortune that were designed to maintain the wealth. There are over 150 direct descendants of Rockefeller, and their net worth is estimated to be $8.4 billion. The fifth and sixth generation aren't likely to be able to live off of their family trust, according to people close to the family. They currently hold no money-making family businesses. It's purely investments. The family members individually donate $50 million each year, and the foundation donates $170 million every year. Generational skipping trusts were in place, which is a beneficial thing to have in place. Rockefeller had trusts in place to make sure that the money was evenly distributed.